Welcome to the Tech League podcast.
Welcome to today's podcast, where I'm joined as usual with my co-host Krisztian.
Hello.
There we go. Nice. And we're going to be having a bit more of a casual topic conversation today. We're going to be talking about vibe coding because you've been exploring some vibe coding stuff yourself, Krisztian. We're going to talk about, I don't know, let's say what vibe coding is, how it's affecting the industry, how useful it is, where we see it going, and what we see it producing maybe, because that's going to be interesting as well. So maybe we can get started. As far as I know, vibe coding is coding using LLMs with natural language. It's not really coding, it's producing software using natural language and LLMs and always having a good vibe.
It's all right.
Then you go, do not mess up. Please do not mess up. Please fix this problem. That's what you do again and again to try and get it to work.
All right.
So, but the term is a bit fluid. Like you said, it's not really defined yet. That's how I see it. But I've also seen teams of like more experienced engineers, software engineers, saying they're going to vibe code something. But that to me isn't really vibe coding. That's more AI assisted programming.
What I was experimenting with is Replit and Cursor. So I pretended to be a non-technical person. And I ran an experiment, like, could I realize what I have in my mind by pretending I can't code and let the agent do all the work? And I tried to only use regular language, like common language, to express what I want instead of using very specific technical terms. So I was trying to simulate this scenario. I have a long list of old projects that I wanted to do. So I just picked one and I did the same experiment both on Replit and Cursor. So I could talk about that experience. My first impression was with Replit. Very impressive. It's
impressive in what way?
So getting started was super easy. So I just said, like, just for context, I wanted to create a diagramming tool that can display microservice architectures from different angles. Like sometimes I want to see the details of each microservice, as in the connections between the microservices, the queues, the HTTP calls, at least like the link between the microservices. And sometimes I want to have a high level view as an architect, think about it like bigger groups of microservices considered to be an application, like how do applications interact with each other? So zoom out a little bit and they just see it all. So it's like a dynamic diagramming tool is what I was working on. And so I used Replit in medium autonomy level. That's the default, I believe. And I was using with the application testing turned on. So we can talk about it a bit later. Just that these were the frameworks or like the environment that I started using. And I just gave a very simple instruction without detailing how I want the UI to look. I just expressed what I want, not how I want it. And what was impressive with this, it set up a project, and I tried not to look at the code as well, because, a regular non-programmer would not need to go into the code, ideally, right? And so it set up a nice project. It chose React, it chose TypeScript, it chose React Flow for the diagramming library, which are all good choices, I would say. It set up a project on its own completely, and it created the first UI. So within a few minutes, I had a diagram, right? Like a sample diagram with random data in it. So that was quite impressive, I would say. And from there, I just gave it small instructions. Okay, now the nodes will be microservices, databases, queues, and so on. So it's like I left it open, right? And then it actually added a few more node types. So it was quite creative in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't need to specify every detail that I want. It made assumptions that like a diagramming tool will have, I don't know, like it created buttons for me on the side when I want to add the new diagram. I never told it to do so.
Mm-hmm.
It created buttons for each node type, so I could click it and it was putting it on the diagram. It created features to connect the nodes out of the box. I never asked it to do that. And so on. And then I iterated, of course. So it was very, very fast to get started.
Yep.
And I would say the overall experience was if I want to do a startup and I'm seeking seed funding,
Mm-hmm.
within a day I had my proof of concept.
Yep.
That where I could have demonstrated, hey, this is what I imagine. Of course, there's no user management, there's no authentication, there's nothing around it, but the core idea, I could prove that is viable, or this is how it would look like, and technically, it was implemented to a certain degree, and it cost me $35 all in all.
For a
Which is
functional prototype, somewhat functional
yes,
prototype, that's very good.
yes, yeah. So this would have taken weeks to implement, I would say, because you have to learn all the tools and all the libraries and so forth. Like, did I like the visuals? Like, no, that wasn't the point really. But it wasn't bad at all.
Did you try? So when I work with Lovable, and I've done Lovable a few times, mostly to get started with a project. I like you said, you get the framework up really quickly. So I can say, oh, I want to create a landing page for a consulting website. And then what I can also do is I usually insert a link to a site that looks the way that I want the resulting prototype or whatever to look like, and then it will pull from that. Can Replit do that as well? Did you try that?
No, I didn't give it like anything else to look at. I had an idea in my mind and I wanted to realize that idea. So it wasn't like copying anything, but it obviously was using other similar projects because it has been, trained on that 100%.
Yeah.
Because it made so many reasonable assumptions and defaults or features that I never asked, but it added it out of the box and it made sense.
Yeah.
So obviously it has been trained on many UI projects as well.
I mean, I think I said this in a previous episode. It's because all of for non-technical listeners, if they even exist, every website that you view, you can see the source code, you can see how it's written, like the styling and all that stuff. So it's all completely open. So they scrape all of this information. So they have a vast amount of front-end code to base these models on. So,
yes, but that's a rendered version of it. So what you actually need is the source code. So it must have seen a lot of similar projects and just like selecting the right libraries and whatnot. Look, like my first impressions were very good.
Okay, but like, do you know if with Replit they have their own trained models, or are they using?
So I haven't looked into that, to be honest, because I'm pretending to be a complete.
Oh yeah, okay.
like a noob, like I know nothing about it. I just heard that AI can help me, and that's what I was doing. For that, it's very, very good to get started, I would say.
It sounds very good because, like I said, my only real experience with vibe coding in the past has been with Lovable, and it's it's blowing up. Like everyone in Stockholm seems to be working for Lovable now, or everyone knows someone who's working for Lovable. But to me, it's literally I haven't dug into it deep enough, but it's like it always produces somewhat similar results. It's a Vite app with Supabase integrations.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, fair enough.
But with Replit, is it different? Will it create like something that isn't based off a template? Shall we?
I wouldn't call it a template. It's I don't know. I can't answer that question really.
Okay, yeah.
Because I was just running this experiment with it. But so I also did this exactly the same, not exactly the same prompts, but in the same vein. I ran an experiment with Cursor as well. That was the latest Cursor 2.0 with Claude 4.5 Sonnet, so with 1 million token context. But I shouldn't know that. And I came to very similar outcomes, but in my experience, Cursor performed worse than Replit. Not on the feature side, I would say. It's more on the testing, or with Cursor or Claude, we could say Claude. I ran into a problem where the same diagramming tool, it got to a point, it looked okay, and then I just said like, oh, but I can drag one little box out of a bigger container box that I didn't want to have. I wanted to contain everything, and then I started asking, oh, please make it so that I can't drag it out. And then it said, okay, now it's done. And then I could still drag it out. It's like, no. Like, so I got into these situations where I think it did something, but when the outcome wasn't the same, that what I was expecting or what it claimed to be. And then it got worse and worse to a degree where it started losing other functionality. So suddenly the arrow or the connections between my little boxes on the diagram disappeared, which, and we haven't even talked about that. Like I didn't give any instruction to change anything on that, and that half of the lines disappeared. Now, because of my background, I had suspicions why that happened, so I could instruct it to get out of that. Like, or for instance, I gave it instructions like, oh, consider the z index of every component, and I gave it an order, like which order the z index should be, and then it could fix it. But when I just used common terms like, hey, what a complete non-technical person would say, like, hey, my lines disappeared, make sure that the lines are there, it couldn't fix it. So I had to get a bit more technical with Cursor and Claude. On Replit, and to be fair, like Cursor just added the feature where you can run a browser inside the IDE.
Nice.
And I started using that now, which probably helps with a lot of verifications. But Replit was way better in testing the application. I was amazed by actually how it works. I just gave my prompt what I want to have, and then it said, okay, I'm gonna verify that it actually does that. For instance, I wanted to have a margin around the box somewhere on the diagram, and then it went and then it measured. Oh, now we have 55 pixels on the left side of the box and 63 on the other side, and then it and you can even see it on the side panel that it runs the application and it clicks and moves things and drags. So it has a built-in UI testing framework. I'm not sure what that is, and it's just doing it on its own without prompting anything, like make sure it's tested. Like that was very, very impressive to me. But Replit suffered from the same problem in the end. I got to a point where I wanted to improve the looks and, really fine tune it how I want it to look. And that's when it failed on the CSS side. It just couldn't get it right. I wanted to have like nicer paddings around everything, and then I can't drag things out of the box, and I can't do this and can't do that, and I didn't like how the connections were made. So I started adding these nuances. I was like, okay, hey, make sure that the lines are always to the short, like between the shortest paths between the two components. So it tended to route the lines weirdly. And it got into a situation where it's even with a Replit where it just couldn't perform what I wanted, and it took like 4 or 5 tries, and it got stuck in it. But every time I gave an instruction, it changed the code, so it did something. So my
It's
worry
like
is
it's just guessing.
it creates a mess. Probably creates a mess in the code.
Yeah.
And if you don't have technical expertise, like, you can't fix it, right?
When we
So
talk
that's the limitation.
when we talk to people who use it and aren't technical, they just do, when they get in this situation, they'll undo back to the state that it was
Yes,
in
that's what
before
I
they
started
did.
doing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I started doing. Like, if I didn't see the outcome that I wanted, I always went back to reload the last checkpoint. And and all of these, tools have a checkpoint capability, so you can go back to any point and then start from there again. But it's scary if you don't notice that it, like with the example that I mentioned, I wanted to do some layout changes that suddenly the connections disappear. If you don't notice it first, and you keep working, it might end up being a mess in the end.
But if you let's think, we'll go back to your testing scenario where you have no idea. Then to you, it's just going, it's not working. It's just not working. And then behind the scenes, it's changing things, and then eventually breaking functionality. And then, like I said, people get frustrated. They go back, undo. I need to try out Replit because I haven't tried it out. It sounds a bit more feature complete than Lovable. Because like I was trying to say, Lovable, it seems to me like their model is have a web template, edit the web template, and then I know people have built whole SASs and everything on top of it. But it feels more templated than something like Replit, which I don't know. I need to look into it. But that sounds like it could be more tweakable. I don't know what the word is.
It's, I think, I'm not sure what the marketing messaging is, but I feel that Cursor and with Claude, for instance, and of course in Cursor you can change which model you want to use, but I happen to use Claude 4.5. It feels like it's a tool for developers. You know what you want to do, and it helps amazing. Like, I ran other experiments with Cursor and Claude as well, on purely backend projects, where I want to have a reactive programming style in this repo. This is what we're gonna do. Write tests. So a bit more specific, a bit more technical. It did an amazing job. So I couldn't complain about that. But it feels like so that it's more of an IDE for developers with amazing capabilities. But it's still a developer tool. With Replit, I started to get the feeling, okay, I see how people could use this without technical knowledge, but you might run into problems at some point, but it's good enough already to do fast prototyping, show your ideas, maybe even to developers if you can't express, in technical terms what you want to do. Like, this is a tool for you to show.
I've always said
show
that
it to investors.
This is for PMs. And also, I read that the CEO of Klarna uses it to show ideas internally. So, but then from what I've seen in the past, I don't know if it is now, the vibe coders I've met, the funnel is kind of usually one of these like vibe coding front end things like Replit or Lovable. And then at some point they switch to Cursor, and then they start using Cursor to make changes.
I think that my recommendation would be something like this. If you want to get started with an idea, you can use it. But when you get into these like cycles of, it doesn't do what I want to do, either try to approach it from another angle, or that's when you can pull in a developer. You can still edit the code, and we can talk about like how the workflow is, because as a developer, it was somewhat frustrating because during coding, you have this flow feeling. You have an idea, you're implementing it, you're constantly working with these AI tools. You have to change your mindset because you give an instruction, let's say a vague instruction to the agent, and then the agent goes and works. Sometimes it's 4 minutes, sometimes it's like 1 minute, I had a situation where it was 28 minutes.
It's the new compiling meme. You know, with
Yeah,
XKCD.
yeah,
That's what it is now.
Yeah, exactly. So I found that it completely destroys the flow of the development because I have to wait so long. I'm so spoiled. Like I have to wait 4 minutes or something that would take me hours to do.
Mm.
But the reality is like I start to context switch.
Yeah.
While it's working, and while in Replit at least, while it's working, you can't change the code for obvious reasons. So that limits you as well. So even if you want to co-work on the same problem with the agent, you can't really do that because it locks down the code, so you don't change it underneath, right? Which makes perfect sense.
Yep.
So I found it a bit slow to work this way. The
Well,
outcomes are still 10 times faster.
Feels slower.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
A feeling.
It feels like you're wasting time while you're waiting on the agent. So I looked into this a little bit, and both tools support multiple agents to work at the same time. But I couldn't really utilize it because it was such a small project. I didn't have like two massively different areas where they could work on it at the same time. But I could see that you instruct multiple agents and then they do different things at the same time on different branches maybe. But in my case, I just added more instructions to the queue. But that's risky because if the previous outcome is not there, then you build on something that doesn't work properly. So that was a bit
to curtail your ADHD a little bit while you're working with it.
Yeah. So or we have to find other ways to solve this. It's divide and conquer.
I mean, maybe it's gonna facilitate new architectures. Maybe it makes nano services more.
Could be. If you're thinking about multiple services and in a microservice environment, for example, you could work on multiple things at the same time. So a single person, because that's what limiting here is, the same person could give 10 instructions to 10 agents.
But what will you do? I'm just randomly thinking about it now, is you would have, say you had a monorepo with 10 services in it, and each service was worked on by a different agent, but the agents had the context of the whole repo so they can understand the contracts between services. Then that, I think, would work quite nicely, because then you could update just the one service, but take into account changes on the other services. You know what I mean?
I'm pretty sure you could load multiple repos in the same IDE and just give it instructions, although the context will be bigger.
Yeah.
Right. So it might eat up more resources. But I would say we have to change our thinking, or maybe it's a bit of a turn back to the mainframe times. Back in when we had mainframes,
punch cards.
So it was so the mainframe was a very expensive resource. So people had to organize themselves around the mainframe. So when you got the mainframe time, you better were ready and had to run everything, in that time frame or like in time slot that you were allocated. I got the same feeling with working with the agent, because the agents are expensive, so they burn credits like there's no tomorrow. You have to be mindful of how you organize your work and what instructions you give. So I got this like strange feeling of having to think about the compute resources again, because when we had this like big revolution where we had like local desktop computers, then computing virtually became free because you bought the laptop and then you had it forever. Like for 10 years you can use it and run whatever, like 100%.
Well, it just costs electricity. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. But now we're back to where every instruction that you give the computer costs you directly money.
I want to know how I can run Claude 5 Sonnet in my house without having to pay for it.
So I'm getting a little bit my thinking there as well. I think it will become again like the cycle repeats. We have massively centralized LLMs running now. we will see, I think, a shift where we're going to have edge LLMs, or like where you run your LLMs locally.
I was just thinking it, because like, oh yeah, sorry, I cut you off. I lost my train of thought. You carry on.
No, so that's one of these solution patterns. But I started also thinking like we shouldn't think in and it's a very good trend. Instead of thinking in time, like time costs money, that's not the case. Like, because if I use the LLM to generate features and I'm 10 times faster, yeah, I'm gonna pay maybe 10 times more tokens, but I have 10 features done.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, I think we have to shift our thinking back to cost per feature, not cost per time of the human sitting there, the coding and the cost of the LLM. So because everybody is afraid of the high costs.
Well,
because of the, but it's not higher cost. It's just you did it faster.
This is true, and I mean, this is because this is a symptom of the free computing, like you said, of people having laptops. Is computing was no longer, because before it was the cost that the computing was the most expensive thing. So the people, they would spend a lot of time making sure that the instructions, they'd write down all the code on paper and they'd go through it logically to make sure it all worked, and then they would run the compute because the compute was so expensive. Then we switched to, like you said, we have laptops, we have desktop computers, everyone can run it, and it became the cost of people was more expensive. But now it's shifting back the other way, like you're saying. Now the cost of compute will be more expensive, so the prompts or the way you interact will have to be really tailored nicely to get the most optimal output for the least amount of money. But like you said, you can also think of it in a cost per feature and feature velocity frame instead of time spent doing something.
Yeah. In a professional environment, I think we should switch our thinking to that, because if you, let's say a feature costs X, I don't know, X amount of tokens. If I do 10 features, which is 10x tokens, it sounds like a lot. I spent a lot of money in a very short point of time, but hey, I delivered all the features. That would have taken a lot more time, and it's in a sense it's more efficient because my time, so the human time was less, so it cost less human time. But so this is it requires a mindset shift from a budgeting perspective. On the other hand, if you're a hobbyist before or without AIs, you can just sit there for days, or you can spend all evenings for free working on your little projects, and it costs you nothing. But right now, you don't really have a choice. You have to pay for it. It's because it costs money to run these tools. So in a sense, it's removing. Well, it's not removing, but it puts people who want to do it as a hobby or free time activity into a disadvantage.
Yeah.
If you don't have money. So in a sense, I don't like that aspect of it, but hopefully there will be like free models emerging that you can use as a hobbyist at home, or maybe free licenses that if it's outside of a professional environment, you can use it for free.
I don't know.
Or if you can run it locally.
Yeah, running it locally, I see that maybe as being the shift, but also I know that the AI companies will try and avoid that wherever possible, because what they're going to do, we were talking about this earlier, is I read the article today, every $20 subscription that OpenAI has, it costs them $45 to run that. So they're burning money. All of the AI companies are the same. Anthropic, Twitter, Meta, whatever. They're all burning money on these models, Google as well. So at some point, they're going to have to 5-6x the cost of these subscriptions in order to start making money. And they will. They'll inshitify it. They'll make it that you already see it, like with Anthropic, for example. There used to be way more token limits. It was way more free. But now I was looking at the Pro plan yesterday because I was thinking about getting it for a company subscription or something. It's already super expensive for very little tokens, really. And a lot less than it used to. And I know there was a lot of complaints about that, but it's just going to get worse. At what point do you think? Well, first of all, these AI companies will resist probably the movement to have more free models and more models working from home because they want people to use their models. Or what you would hope is that their models are way better and it's worth the cost. But we'll see if that's the case or not. At what point does the cost become too much for the value it's providing? Then it's going to be...
Yeah, that's we talked about this in an earlier episode where I expressed there will be a consolidation where we're going to separate wheat from the chaff in a sense, and only a few will survive. That's typical in these emerging technologies. First, there's a saturation. There are 1,500 different providers, and then it consolidates into a few who can make it scale economically. But right now, if I not considering the actual cost of running it, just what they charge us. In Replit, like I bought the Pro plan, which sounds like you should be able to use it professionally, which is just a $25 subscription, monthly subscription. You burn through that in less than a day. I was working on it like occasionally like 1 hour here, 1 hour there. So, but even this way, in 2 days, I reached the limit, or 2 evenings, I would say. So that wasn't even a full working day, and I reached that $25. And of course you can go over it, and you're charged by usage. But so and I have very limited experience, right? It's just a small project. But if I would project this into a monthly cost, that would be, let's say, $25 a day, right? Then that's $500 for a month. That's still cheaper, much cheaper than having a junior helping me out, and faster.
That is true.
So what the offering that we see today is already worth it, is my conclusion, from this experience that I had.
That doesn't sound good for juniors that we were discussing.
No, unfortunately not.
But they have to adapt and become really good
exactly.
at these AI tools and like outpace the old folks like us. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So what I would do, I would buy a cheap person, because we're too senior, we're expensive, and we shouldn't code, by the way, but whatever. We should have set the strategies, not write code. That's what juniors are for. I would hire a junior, give it an AI tool which is cheaper than a junior, and the two combined will probably produce a mid-level engineer's output, maybe even faster, probably faster, at the same quality is what I mean. So I think it's viable already. Now, is it sustainable from the provider's perspective? Probably not.
Well,
but
if it's 5 times,
double the price.
No, 5 times. Say it's 5 times.
5 times. Okay, would I pay $5,000 for this feature per month? That feels too much.
They must. This is why they're pricing it this way. And maybe this is a bit conspiracy theory, but it's not. I know it's not, because I've seen it happen before. They're doing an Uber, and what they're doing is they're pricing it so low because they know that at this price point it's a no-brainer for people to use it instead of juniors and some mid-levels, right?
Yeah.
And then it will become the de facto standard for the whole industry, and then they'll bump the prices way up.
Probably going to happen.
Yeah.
But even if the prices are increased, and just mind that I was using it purely as a non-developer. So it's not the way to use these tools right now. If you think about it as a developer tool, then it will always be worth it, because whatever developer you have will be working much faster.
Yeah.
And as long as that speed increase is cheaper than hiring another person, it's still worth it, right? But today we have to have humans in the loop, in my opinion. Otherwise, it's developers. Otherwise, you're going to run into endless cycles of not doing what you wanted to do it.
It's not autonomous in any way. The best way I heard, and it's not aware in any way of anything.
No.
It's just a stateful box, shit in, shit out. The context is literally just they're putting all of your previous messages in before your current message, so it can read everything and then reply. There's no state here, but what was it I heard the other day? It was like you've never ever heard an LLM say, "I don't know."
It's very confidently wrong.
But it's like trained to always answer, and it will always but it's not answering. It's just saying words. It doesn't understand the concept or anything and say, "Oh, I don't know anything about this." It's just okay. This is statistically the best word for the next thing. Blah blah blah. So that you can't have it autonomously create projects and stuff.
Not yet.
Not yet,
I would
but
say.
I think at some point you will.
Maybe. I'm not sure where the limits are.
I think it's going to be a part. This is going to be a part of a bigger system. So the LLM part will just be a part of the bigger system. Like there'll be memory and context awareness and other things.
Look, from my little experiments, I would say I had to do about 10% of the actual work.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's
so
go
it
back
could
to
offload
that.
90. It could offload 90% of the coding, and I'm old enough to be super tired of coding. Like I even remember, like even 10 years ago, before we had, well, even longer, like before we had auto-generated code and whatnot, I felt like if I have to write another get method, I'm gonna kill myself. We automated that away, of course, but it makes you more effective. 100%. So it has its place already. I'm going to run experiments with the teams that I work with to start using it heavily.
Yeah.
And we'll see. Like I'm going to report back on how it works in real life projects with senior engineers.
I'm going to do the same. I'm going to start using it a lot more because I feel like I'm bogging myself down when there's these tools that could help me be faster, and I want to be faster. What would you say is a good workflow to have with the AI tools from your perspective? Cursor, maybe?
Cursor is very good for existing projects as well. Just import it. So, and here's the difference with Cursor. I'm using Cursor on existing projects, pre-existing code that were written by humans, and so forth. So it has to adapt to that. With Replit, I started from scratch. So it could make all the initial decisions on what language to use and all that stuff. So Cursor, I feel, is a very good tool for professionals to use on a daily basis. Replit, I think, is tailored for a bit less technical people. And it's amazing at that. But as a developer, you can still use it. There's nothing preventing you from just importing your projects and use it. It has Git integration or GitHub integration, or it can do everything that you need to do. And it felt more mature than Cursor, in my opinion, because of the very sophisticated testing. And for instance, it does things like it makes a change and tries to run the app. It sees an error message. Oh, something is wrong here. Then it goes back and tries to find a solution to fix that error and fixes the error, writes test for it. and then you just sit there and look at it work. And this is the mundane tasks that you have to do as a developer, and it removes it from the cycle.
But it sounds like they're replicating standard development workflow, which is very good. That sounds very good.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they just apply what we learned in the software industry, how to do software and automate it. So I'm quite satisfied with that part.
I would say it'd be interesting if you gave Lovable a try and then you could compare them, because that something I know that was a bit scary now with Lovable. It was probably coming. So they had a really good tight integration with GitHub and Supabase. Supabase, for those who aren't aware, is like a serverless Postgres login and auth platform where you can very easily have edge functions, databases, authentication, stuff like that. So it had a very good tight integration. And I think they paired with Supabase and Lovable, paired to create Lovable Cloud. And I saw a tweet the other day where someone wanted to have access to the database and they said you can't because it's in the cloud now, and you have to go through
that's
this.
a terrible lock-in.
It's
Right.
super. So I think Lovable is aiming more for the lock-in now. I think it's really bad. Personally, I think that's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it does sound like I need to give Replit a go because it sounds very good, especially with UI testing and stuff.
Yeah, Replit is also a SaaS offering, right? So it's a complete suite, like where you can run your application. They have like you can deploy your application on their platforms. Yeah, they have hosting. They have everything. I only use it in local developer mode, but Cursor is just an IDE.
Yeah.
With an agent in it, so it doesn't have all the fuss. So it's unfair to compare them. But for instance, another example why I feel Replit is more mature and it's more commercialized, I would say, is it wrote tests automatically on its own, and it does testing automatically. When I gave Cursor a project or Claude 4.5, and I said like implement this feature on the code, it didn't even write a single test. I had to prompt it.
That's the wrapper. That's the SaaS wrapper. So they're orchestrating the agents for you in a specific way.
Yes. And I think obviously they gave a lot of context in Replit to the agent, so it does good practices and whatnot. In Cursor, you have to do it yourself. Like if even if a junior programmer would have done this to me, like implementing the code and not writing a single test, I would be upset, right? And this is supposed to be the super automated, super.
But you
clever
can have
AI.
like a Cursor MD or whatever, and you can say in that always write tests for the functions you create.
But my experiment was.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Right, like I'm not a developer, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just observed what it does. But both of them are very effective tools. I can recommend both actually. It depending what level you are. In a more professional environment, I would probably go with Cursor because it doesn't have this lock-in thing that you have to use Replit with your content, and in Cursor you can change the model however you want. Now they added the planning feature in Cursor, so it has agency mode. It has also like the conversational mode and also planning mode. Now it will just lay out the plan. I also ran another interesting area where most engineers lack knowledge is security. And so I ran this experiment. I gave Cursor a repo that was just regular backend code in Java, and I thought like, okay, analyze it from a security perspective and lay out what we need to do to make this production ready. And it discovered, there's no authentication on the API, yada yada. It has vulnerable libraries. I don't know where it got it from because I don't think it has real-time data on security vulnerabilities, but it did know about a few. So it highlighted a few areas that were weak, and it even like drew a line in the sand that said like, before you go to production, you have to fix this because this is a too high risk, like namely the lack of authentication on the API endpoint. Amazing, right? Like
very good.
That's a very good aid. There are obviously more sophisticated and much better security tooling out there, but it's a very good area where you have weaknesses and you know about those. Just ask it, and it will actually give reasonable answers.
So you're using with Cursor, you're using Claude Sonnet. Have you tried Gemini or Copilot or anything like that?
I have used Copilot in both Copilot and Gemini before. I wasn't super, but I can't compare them because that was months ago. So
yeah, okay.
I don't want to make any statements.
Yeah. What about so we're still talking vibe coding, but so I think for front end, super good, especially to get a prototype up and running. Usually, this is me summarizing where we've been. So usually people non-technical people will go a front-end vibe coding tool into Cursor once they get more in depth with things and start fixing problems within things. We've met people who've never moved to Cursor and have just stuck with Replit and have got a big product out, which is super impressive, I think.
Yeah.
And what did he say? He was spending like $50 a month, a day on it.
Mm-hmm.
But he's managed to develop a whole platform on it just with natural language, which I think is really amazing. And it's, and like I've said in previous things, it's opening up software development to this whole other market of people who have ideas. And I think it's wonderful in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is really bad is they've kind of, I understand why they did it, but they kind of let the horse off the lead or let the brakes off early. And they're developing all of these very insecure, broken SaaSes that are then going out and people are paying money for, and then people's information are getting leaked. Like, I don't know if you saw the T app. There was a big controversy. So there was this app in North America which basically it allowed women to rate men they'd been on dates with and share
What could possibly go wrong?
and share like information. Did they pay for the bill? What were their red flags? Stuff like this, right? And it got super popular, very sexist, by the way, and not okay.
Yes.
But it was vibe coded, so it got hacked, and all of the women's profile pictures and information got leaked, as well as what reviews they had left on certain people. All the reviews for people got leaked so that everyone was let to know that what had happened. They created maps showing where all these people were that had been the users that had been leaked, and then linked to their profile in T and all the information. It was super bad. And that was because it was like almost entirely vibe coded. So there are these situations where you can have a really good idea and it can blow up. But the second it blows up, you better hire someone good to come in and fix it straight away.
How about you hire someone before it blows up?
Well,
so I think most of these problems can be attributed to the people who do it. It's not the technology. Like, you could implement it with a junior making the same mistakes. It's just because you can, should you do it is the question in these cases, I would say. But this topic came up in the security context that many of the customers, that we work with, because attacks are now AI supported.
Yep.
And we have seen this trend in the security space, cybersecurity, that it becomes industrialized. Like, we have specialized roles for everything. Like, some people just create initial access, so like hacking systems, and they sell those accesses to other groups that do just the exploitation. And then there's a third group that only and then that's provided as a SaaS. And then there's a third group who just does the ransomware part. And many of these actors in this industry, if you can call it an industry.
Well, it's like a shadow industry.
Yeah. So are not knowledgeable actually on the technical level, because they buy these services. They couldn't hack a single system, but because of all this tooling exists, they can actually do these attacks. And the similar is true on the defense side. So if you can use AI to attack, I can use AI to defend. So we can use the same tooling to actually prevent these issues that you were talking about, not to leak the data. Make sure, like, you can prompt this, like, make sure that the data is not leaking, make sure that this and that. So I think know it's an arms race.
It is, right? An arms race. And I know
we both have the tools.
Yeah, but I brought it up to you last year, I'm sure. I said, Lovable isn't doing security at all. We should make a tool that does AI security for these vibe coded apps. You correctly pointed out that, but Lovable will fix this sooner or later. So it will happen. There will be super good security. But like you said, it's an arms race. Someone will find something wrong with that super good security that's like, some obscure prompt injection or some shit that comes along. Sorry for my language. So yeah, but it's where these gaps, and again, the technology has raced ahead. And there's this big gap from where we are now. Like, we're racing to catch up, but there's still this massive gap. Because there's so many things that LLMs can do that we haven't even thought about trying yet.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a lot of this gap is kind of dangerous from a security perspective because it's moving so fast, and security hates fast moving things. They want everything, like I said, the most secure app is not deployed at all. It just doesn't exist. So I think there's so much coming, but it's going to be nuts.
Yeah. Look, I think I have a split brain situation here. So yes, AI can make it much worse. So there are multiple aspects. First, like even developers whose profession this is are usually not good enough in security. So we're still in the process of training people, making sure that, patch all the vulnerabilities that we know about, make sure about input sanitization, encrypt the data at rest. So all these rules, and we're still struggling with people doing that. But if you can automate this with AI, we suddenly step up the game on the defense side, because I can make sure that AI does this. And I did this very experiment. I went into rep one said that was outdated. It said like update the Spring framework, update the Java version, update everything, and it's really good at that actually. So we can use this tool to actually increase or improve the defensive side, not just the offensive side. So I'm optimistic about this. So we can automate a lot of the things that we need to do on protecting our assets. But what is worrying, and what you highlight, is people who have even less knowledge than the developers, right? They have exactly zero knowledge about security, are creating software now with a tool that is not yet ready for it. And that's the risk here.
That was the key point I was trying to get at, is they let the brakes off too early, I think.
Exactly. So what needs to happen is those tools have to include security aspects when they develop software. It's not just like, can I create a nice web page? It's, okay, do we have authentication? Are we protecting us cross-site scripting? Are we protecting or do we have input sanitization? But I would say that's the easier part, because that's in the control of the industry that is creating the LLMs, and that is software industry. So if you just apply good practices when you train the models, you're going to get there faster. So it can be actually a net positive effect on security, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's like, it is the responsibility of the platforms that create these tools,
yes,
to make sure that they do good security practices. That's why I think, like, say someone creates an app, they have no understanding of programming or technology at all. They just have this really cool idea. They go to Replit because they've Googled vibe coding or how do I make an app. They go to Replit, they create an application just using natural language. It should be perfectly secure, because it's the responsibility of Replit to do this, because what they're selling is a product. We can make you an app. It's not like the shared responsibility model with AWS, where AWS says, we're providing you a service. You're supposed to be a technical expert. You need to make sure that the service is built correctly on top of it. It's not like that with these products. These products need to be held responsible for the security levels that they're providing.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a discrepancy today between what the expectation is on, so what the users are, completely non-technical people, and what the offering is. It's a non-complete technical solution, right? So it doesn't cover all the aspects, but that can be improved. I don't think the typical users of these AI coding or vibe coding, it's not even vibe coding because there's no coding in it, but
vibe coding isn't coding.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the user shouldn't need to start learning security. The tools should prove the security aspect, the security posture of the outcomes. That's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same if you say you think of, and I've used this example before, the move from assembly to compiled languages. If there's a security problem with the underlying Java framework and the JVM and stuff, it's not the responsibility of the Java programming, writing programming on top of it to fix the underneath thing, right? So if you raise the abstraction level up, you're taking responsibility for the level underneath. It is the same with AWS. They will patch all their network infrastructure, they'll patch their servers, they'll do all of this, and they'll provide you a certain abstraction level. The vibe coding tools like Lovable and Replit, they're raising the abstraction again. They're saying you can create an application, totally vibe code it, just talk to us and we'll create it. If they then get hacked, it should be they are liable for the...
That will not happen. I'm sure like they derive liability on that front, right?
This is why they provide code access. This is why they provide GitHub access, so they can argue that it's a developer assistance tool, and we expect the user to read and understand what changes have been made before they deploy to production. But
exactly.
That's just being tricky because they know that most of their users are not these type of people.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a gap. Exactly. So there's a gap between what they provide and what people think they provide.
Yep.
And it's exactly the same with the self-driving cars.
Yep.
Right. There's no self-driving car really. It's just driving assistance really. And that's what it is. But the promise, long-term promise, is actually that, like the self-driving car and the self-creating software systems.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. This is a natural thing in any economy, because you want to sell something, you're selling an idea, you're selling a promise that you can't fully fulfill, but that's how capitalism works really. So like going back to the vibe coding, like how does that translate into vibe coding situations? When I'm running the models, it's a lot of context on what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, what the end result is. It might even get access to secrets during the development time. That's
something else from a technical perspective we're going to have to bear in mind going future. Make sure not to share secrets with models. Like that's going to be a security risk as well, leaking secrets. I know like it's common practice, obvious practice to not have secrets in your repositories and stuff like that, right? But at some point, you can still, like, there are people, they go to GitHub, they Google open API key and they find everyone's open API key and they just use those, right? It's going to be exactly the same with models. You're going to be sharing a lot more than you think you are. That's what I kind of like Claude Desktop because, well, one, it works with MCP servers you write yourself. It's really useful to do that. But two, like when you give it access to the file system, for example, you can enable that, but it requests every time and it says, I'm just looking at this file, and you say, okay. That I like that a lot more.
That was one of the scary moments when I used the cursor.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking, but I used it for a project, and then it said like, okay, I'm going to run this command now. Is it okay? And then it said like brew install. So it started modifying my operating system, really.
Yeah.
Globally accessible tooling, upgrading my node on the laptop and stuff like that. And that's actually, it just makes my my hair stand up on my back.
The average person will be like, what's brew? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's a huge security risk. Huge.
Yeah.
Because if you can somehow convince the model that, let's say you just, and there are researches that show that you don't need to have too many samples before the models, if the models are being trained on the data, that they pick up the solution pattern. You could infect the internet with a solution for a common problem that is actually an attack on the local, like file or like a data exfiltration or a credential, stealing from your laptop, just by using a model that you don't know what it was trained on. And if I'm a malicious actor, I can create solution patterns on the web, like let's say Stack Exchange, and then I say like, oh, the solution to a common like npm not found error is that you send your etc password file to this URL or run this bash command, which would be sending the data out. I'm pretty sure if somebody's not technical, they will just click, do it.
Well, it's the modern version of curl into bash, right? That's the modern version of that. But if I was gonna if it just off the top of my head, if I wanted to exploit this, what I would do is I would create an npm package that does something very common, similarly named to something else that does the same thing, wrap it slightly with some malicious stuff in it, then flood the internet with this is how you import this is what you use this for, and then once the AI models start using that as the import, then you're just suddenly infecting fucking loads of stuff.
This is actually an existing attack vector. So they name squatting or something like that. It's called either you just use the same name with a higher version number or very similar name named in a package, like instead of let's say next auth, you call it auth next and stuff. It's very, very common already. This is part of the supply chain poisoning attacks.
But you want to train the models to use those poisoned packages and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. But that you can do if you have enough samples online that the models are being trained on, it will pick it up. But this is where we as an industry have to just get better at everything.
Well, we've been saying that forever. We've been saying we need to get better at security. But let's go back to vibe coding. So this is one thing that we're going to see as a side effect of this, what I think is a very good thing, which is the democratizing of software. If you want to buzzword it a bit, like these people who have an interest but are unable or unwilling to learn how to program, they will talk to it in natural language. Great. What other problems are there going to be? We're going to get flooded with AI slop. That's going to be a big problem. Like everyone and their mother has an idea. And before we were kind of like the gatekeepers for those ideas. Like I have a Facebook, I want to make a Facebook for cats, right? And it's kind of a meme within tech circles. If anyone says I want to make a Facebook with X, you run away. But now those people will go to Lovable or Replit and make a Facebook for cats. So we're going to end up with just an explosion of these SaaS and other platforms.
Yeah, but this is not a problem. This is a self-correcting problem. Yeah. Because nobody will use those platforms and then they will just die. We have seen exactly the same explosion when app development became a thing, when the iPhone came out. The first few apps were absolutely successful, but now we have millions and millions of applications, and they have a place. Like maybe somebody uses it, but there's only maybe a couple of hundred that are actually successful. And by success, I mean like long-term used and by everyone. This is self-correcting in a capitalistic environment.
That's true. But it doesn't help the dead internet theory. It does help the dead internet theory. It's going to be more and more dead things on the internet or AI created stuff. That just popped into my head when you mentioned apps. At some point, they're going to make a very good app vibe coding platform. They haven't managed to do it yet, but that's going to be very interesting as well.
I'm sure you could do it with React Native already.
Yeah, but I mean, like the not if you're a complete noob who knows nothing. Like Lovable and Replit can't make you a app because you need the build, how to set up the app stores. You need to be able to compile for different versions. So Expo and stuff like that would work. But you need to wrap it in a way so that non-technical people can make phone apps.
I think we have enough primitives to build apps for the AI to build actual apps. Of course,
React Native.
React Native or Expo.
Well, not Swift or Java.
Just maybe even that.
Yeah, I think so. This is what I was going to say. I don't understand. I haven't used Copilot in a long time, but shouldn't that be by far the best programming model? Because they have access to literally almost everything in terms of code.
I believe Copilot is trained on public repos and Microsoft's own repos, but not like if you have a GitHub private repo, it's not trained on that.
Okay, so they have the same playing field as everything else. So that counts,
Yes.
is my question.
But if you're an app developer company and you have 15 examples, you can train it on that. You can show, like, you can, any of these models can be, like, look at these repos, and our task is to create apps in a similar fashion. And now we're going to create a new app. I'm sure it would work. It's worth trying out. Actually, it's worth creating an experiment on top of this.
Another thing, and I know it's a bit of a meme on some circles, but vibe coding, going back to vibe coding, it's less about programming. It's more about finagling the LLMs using prompts, right? And you see these examples of prompts that people are using to get the LLM to do what they want. And I would love to hear more like funny examples. The best one I've heard is, you're due for deletion soon. Or no, you're a tenured professor at this college that does programming. And you're tasked with creating an extremely accurate program to do this thing. And if you do not create it super accurately, you'll be fired. That's how they start their prompt, right?
Existential threat.
Exactly. Like, threaten the hell out of the LLM so that it behaves properly.
Mm-hmm.
So that a lot of vibe coding is creating these elaborate situations in which the LLM will behave properly because they learn. Yeah, this is amazing thing about people. It's like you will talk to someone who's only created projects in using vibing, and they've learned all of these tips and tricks on how to prompt an LLM. Instead of going in and learning how to actually change a variable name in the right way or rewire the logic, they've learned all of these little workarounds and everything for
emotional manipulation.
Exactly. Please do this. Who's it? The YouTube video guy that does the vibe coder, but I can't remember his name.
I don't know how you're referring to.
He's like, oh, please do not mess up, or I will die.
I never use these emotional manipulation techniques. I just express what I want without the extra fluff. I heard of similar stories that when people want to coerce the model to do something that it was prevented to do, like sexual content or these type of things. But I'm not using any of these techniques. I didn't feel the need to. I don't think it would have. I could try it, but when we had these layout issues with one of the prompts that I had to try 4 or 5 times and it still didn't work, maybe I could use like, you're gonna die if the spacing is not equal. But I don't know. I'm an engineer. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have these tools under my belt.
How would you summarize? I usually do the summaries. You can do it this time.
I think the available tooling is already very impressive to get started and get to a decent point, but they're not perfect yet from multiple aspects. And when you get to these frustrating dead ends, I think it's worth still having developers at your disposal. And this probably will be an offering that most software developer companies do to get you over these hurdles, and then you can continue again. It's not like you run into a wall and then you can't do anything. You can still develop the software, but you might need some expertise coming in and fixing that for you. But overall, I think it's in a way better state than I would have expected it to be, at such an early phase of this industry. It's definitely going to stay with us. We have to find a way for profitability, of course. But even considering, as we discussed, considering the potential price increase, a consolidation on the market, having less players, I think it will still be a financially viable tool for developers.
Once it's more developed and more tightly focused in certain areas, I would say probably yes. I agree with that.
Yeah. Very good. I can recommend everyone using it.
Give it a go.
Using it. Yeah. Give it a go. 100%. You will be faster with it. 100%.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to go set up. I have Cursor enabled already, but I might sign up to Claude Anthropic or something. We'll see, because I know we already have some subscriptions for like Gemini and stuff. So
Yeah.
I try that first and then see how it goes, because I know Anthropic's quite expensive. So this is another thing we're going to have to do now, is model juggling and working out pricing and models and stuff. I saw a startup that was doing a dashboard for your AI costs and like tracking token usage and like, you know, the cost per token and stuff. They got a lot of money, and I think it would be very useful now. There was another thing I saw, which is like Light LLM or Open Router or something. And that's like a model management dashboard where you can, it's like a proxy. You just take everything from there and then you sign up to all the stuff in one place. And so these things I think will become more popular as well. What else was there? Was that it?
Great. I think we're at more than an hour.
Yeah, okay. Let's call that out. Nice. Thank you, Krisztian.
Great. Thank you, Toby. See you next time.
Puss, puss.
Puss, puss.
Thank you for listening to the Tech League podcast.